Most people read something, nod along, and forget it in 48 hours. Special Forces soldiers memorize entire city layouts, faces, call signs, extraction routes, names of assets, enemy patrol schedules, contingency plans A, B, and C. All of it, in one briefing, under pressure, in the dark, while someone is shooting at them. And they don't forget. Not tomorrow, not next week, not ever. David Goggins read a book in prison called Can't Hurt Me. No highlighter, no second read. He could recite passages verbatim years later. Jocko Willink plans entire military operations from memory. Tim Kennedy, UFC fighter, Special Forces sniper, says the hardest part of training isn't the physical pain, it's the cognitive load. Because information is a weapon, and they can't afford to leave it behind. Most people think memory is talent. Wrong. It's a system, and Special Forces soldiers use 4 of them. I'm going to show you exactly what they are. By the end of this video, your brain will work completely differently. You've been warned. Chapter 1, Mission Briefing Architecture. You take notes. You write everything down. You highlight. You color code your tabs like an idiot. Then you close the book and remember nothing. Why? Because your notes are a crutch. Your brain knows the notes exist, so it doesn't bother remembering. Why store what's already stored somewhere else? Your brain is lazy on purpose. It conserves energy. It outsources to your notebook, your phone, your Google Drive. This is called cognitive offloading, and it's destroying your memory. Special Forces soldiers don't get to write things down during mission briefings. The enemy doesn't wait for you to find your highlighter. Sensitive information can't go on paper. No phone, no notes app, no cloud backup. They have one shot: their brain. So, they developed what military intelligence trainers call structured encoding, not random absorption, deliberate architecture. Here's how it works. Every piece of information gets immediately filed under a specific mental category, not stuff I need to know. Specific categories: who, what, where, when, why, threat level, exit routes, contingency triggers. The brain doesn't like random data floating around. It rejects it. But give it a folder, it stores the file immediately. Princeton researchers found that students who took notes by hand remembered 40% more than those who typed. Not because handwriting is magic, because writing by hand is slower. It forces your brain to compress, categorize, and rephrase. It does the structural encoding automatically. But here's the problem. Most people don't know what category they're filing under. They just absorb words. Surgeons use illness scripts. Special Forces use mission architecture. You're using nothing. Start asking, where does this go? Every time you read something, every time you hear something. What category? What folder? What mission parameter? Your brain needs a filing system, not a pile. But structured encoding is only the first step, because even if you file it right, you'll still lose it in 72 hours. The second method stops that from happening. Chapter 2, Pressure Inoculation. You study in silence, calm room, good lighting, no distractions, perfect conditions. Then the exam hits, someone coughs, the clock ticks loudly, your hands go cold, and your mind goes completely blank. Idiot, you trained in peace, you're performing in war, and your brain can't bridge that gap. Special Forces soldiers call this pressure inoculation, the deliberate exposure to stress during training so that stress during performance becomes irrelevant. Their instructors don't just teach the information, they test it under simulated chaos, loud music, sleep deprivation, freezing water, physical exhaustion. You have to recall the mission parameters when you can barely stand up. You have to name the extraction point while someone is yelling in your face. Why? Because stress hormones, specifically cortisol and norepinephrine, actually enhance memory consolidation when introduced at the right moment. Harvard psychologist Elizabeth Kensinger confirmed this in 2007. Emotional and physical arousal during learning significantly improves long-term retention. Your brain flags the information as important. This is survival data. Store it deep. But here's the problem. Most people create the opposite environment. They remove every possible stressor. Quiet library, no pressure, low stakes practice. Their brain never gets the signal that this information matters, so it stores it shallow, temporary, gone by Friday. Your version of pressure inoculation is simple. Raise the stakes on your practice. Test yourself on the material while standing up. Recite it out loud instead of reviewing it silently. Do it after exercise when your heart rate is elevated. Quiz yourself on a timer. Create real consequences for wrong answers. Robert Bjork at UCLA calls this desirable difficulty. The harder the retrieval, the deeper the storage. Easy review is a lie. It feels like learning. It isn't. You're just recognizing words you've already seen. Recognition is not recall. Struggle during practice. Your brain treats the struggle as a survival signal. This matters. Remember it. But even with structure and pressure, your memory leaks. Everyone's does. There's a reason Special Forces soldiers don't rely on a single pass. That's what Chapter 3 is about. Subscribe before you forget what you just learned. That's not a joke. Chapter 3. Tactical repetition. You've heard of spaced repetition. You nodded along. You downloaded Anki once, made 12 cards, and never opened it again. Useless. Here's why you failed. You treated repetition like a chore, something to check off a list. Study Spanish? Done. Review flashcards? Done. Next. Special Forces soldiers treat repetition like ammunition. You drill because the drill is the weapon, not because it's on a schedule. Hermann Ebbinghaus mapped this in 1885. The forgetting curve. Your brain loses 50% of new information within an hour, 70% within 24 hours, 90% within a week. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. Your brain is deleting what it thinks is irrelevant. So the only question is, how do you convince your brain the information is relevant? You review it at the exact moment before it disappears. That's it. Not a random schedule, not every day. The moment before the cliff. Right before the deletion point. Special Forces operators use what trainers call refresh cycles. Short, sharp, repeated exposures in the hours immediately following a briefing. A 5-minute recap 1 hour later. Another 2 minutes before sleep. Another brief scan in the morning. The brain sees the pattern. It decides this data is being accessed repeatedly. It must be important. It promotes it from RAM to permanent storage. The neuroscience term is synaptic consolidation. Every retrieval strengthens the neural pathway. Every successful recall makes the next recall easier. You're not just reviewing, you're physically rebuilding the architecture of your memory. Here's your protocol. After learning anything new, pause 60 minutes later and try to reconstruct it from memory. No notes. Write down what you remember, then check. Find the gaps. Those gaps are your ammunition for the next repetition cycle. Most people review what they already know. They scroll through familiar material, nod along, feel productive. That's not studying. That's validation. Stop confirming what you remember. Hunt for what you've already forgotten. The forgetting is where the learning lives. But even with structured encoding, pressure inoculation, and tactical repetition, there's one thing that separates Special Forces memory from everyone else. It's the method nobody talks about. Chapter 4. Spatial anchoring. Your brain doesn't think in words, it thinks in places. This is not a metaphor, this is neuroscience. Your hippocampus, the memory hub of your brain, evolved to track spatial information. Where food is, where danger is, where your tribe sleeps. Location is the original data format. Words, numbers, abstract concepts. These came later. Your brain finds them slippery because they have no anchor. They float. And floating things fall. Ancient Greek orators knew this. They called it the method of Loci, a memory palace. You walk through a familiar location in your mind and attach each piece of information to a specific spot. First doorway equals concept A. Kitchen table equals concept B. The bathroom mirror equals concept C. Special Forces soldiers call it tactical spatial mapping. Every mission debrief gets mentally walked through a physical environment. The target building becomes the memory structure. Entry point equals phase 1. First room equals phase 2. Rooftop equals extraction. When the soldier needs to recall phase 2, they mentally walk into the first room. The information is sitting there. They didn't memorize it. They placed it. Neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire at University College London studied London taxi drivers for years. Their hippocampi were physically larger than average people. The spatial demands of their job had physically grown their memory organ. Memory is not fixed. It is a muscle, and spatial training is the heaviest lift. Your version of this is simple. Pick a location you know perfectly. Your childhood home, your apartment, your daily commute route. Assign mental locations to key concepts before you study them. Walk through the space in your mind while encoding the information. Then, when you need to recall, walk back through. Joshua Foer used this to go from average person to USA memory champion in 1 year. He memorized the order of a shuffled deck of cards in under 2 minutes. He didn't have a better brain. He had a better building. The memory palace isn't a trick. It's the most natural form of memory your brain has. You're not adding something artificial. You're returning to something ancient. Most people ignore this because it takes 5 minutes to set up. 5 minutes. and they'll spend 3 hours rereading notes that will be gone by Thursday. The problem: you now have 4 weapons: mission architecture, pressure inoculation, tactical repetition, spatial anchoring. Special Forces soldiers use all 4 simultaneously, every time, without thinking, because it's automatic. That's the gap between you and them. Not intelligence, not talent, not some biological advantage they were born with. Automaticity. Their system runs in the background. It requires no effort. It just works. By the way, I put all 4 of these into a 1-page Special Forces memory protocol. The architecture template, the pressure drill tracker, the refresh cycle schedule, and the spatial mapping guide. Link in the description. It's free. But here's the problem though. You know how to remember. You still don't know how to learn fast enough to feed the system. Because if input is slow, even a perfect memory doesn't save you. You're still behind. That's why I made this video breaking down the exact method that cuts your learning time by 80%. It's almost unfair. Watch it next.